Montana, 1887. There are men who grow old gracefully, who move into the later chapters of their lives with the quiet acceptance of someone who has made peace with what is and what isn't. Jacob Walker was not quite that man. He was 58 years old, and he had not made peace with anything. He had simply stopped fighting, which is a different thing entirely, though from the outside the two can look remarkably similar.
He ran a cattle ranch 12 miles outside of Grover, Montana, on land his father had broken and his own hands had kept. 300 acres of high grass and rocky creek beds, and the particular silence of a place where one person has lived alone for too long. The ranch was good, the cattle were healthy, the fences held. Jacob himself was the thing that had stopped being tended.
Not dramatically, not in any way that anyone would have pointed to directly. He ate, he worked, he spoke when spoken to, and was considered by everyone in Grover County to be a decent man of sound character. He went to church on Sundays and to the feed store on Thursdays, and came home both times without anything having changed. His wife, Margaret, had died 11 years ago. Not suddenly. The fever had taken 3 months to do what it did, which in some ways was worse than sudden, because he had watched it coming and been unable to stop it. After Margaret, there had been grief, and then work, and then more work, and then a kind of settled quietness that he had eventually stopped distinguishing from contentment. He was 58 years old. He had a ranch and a horse and a good dog named Porter, who asked nothing of him but proximity. He had, without fully deciding to, concluded that this was sufficient. He rode into Grover on a Tuesday in September for salt blocks and feed and a pound of coffee, and nothing else. He came home with a name he couldn't stop thinking about, which was, all things considered, the more significant purchase. Clara Bennett had arrived in Grover 3 weeks before Jacob first saw her. She was 29 years old. She had come from Billings to take the position vacated by old Mr. Hennessy, who had retired in June after 22 years of teaching Grover's children everything he knew. She had dark hair and steady eyes, and the particular quality of someone who listens completely, not waiting for their turn to speak, but actually receiving what is said and doing something with it. Within 3 weeks, she had become the most talked-about person in Grover County, which was not a large county. 3 men had attempted to call on her formally. She had received them all with warmth and declined them all with clarity. The banker's son, Franklin Pierce Jr., prosperous, handsome, 26, had sent flowers twice. She had put them in the schoolroom where the children could enjoy them, which Franklin had not intended, but Clara thought was the better use of flowers. Jacob watched none of this. He was 12 miles out and had no occasion to be in town more than once a week. She spoke to him first. "Excuse me," she said from the schoolhouse steps. "You wouldn't happen to know where I could find someone who could look at my stove? It's been smoking badly since last week, and the children are suffering for it." He stopped his horse. He looked at her. She looked back at him with the direct, patient gaze of someone who has asked a reasonable question and is waiting for a reasonable answer. "Tom Briggs," he said, "hardware store. Tell him Jacob Walker sent you and he won't overcharge." "Thank you," she said. Then, "I'm Clara Bennett. I teach here." "I know," he said. "Jacob Walker. I ranch." "I know," she said. He rode on. 14 seconds of conversation. He counted them later, which he did not admit to anyone. He did, however, mention Tom Briggs's name to Tom himself the following Thursday, just to ensure the stove situation was properly handled. "Already handled," Tom said, with a look that Jacob chose not to interpret. "Good," Jacob said. He bought his coffee and left. Tom watched him go and said nothing, but he was smiling. Jacob didn't see that either. She came to the ranch for the first time in October. She had a student, young Thomas Aldridge, 11 years old, whose father ran the property 2 miles south of Jacob's. Thomas had been missing school, and Clara made a practice of visiting the homes of children who missed school. She stopped at his gate on the way back. "Your fences are in good condition," she said by way of greeting. He was repairing the gate hinge. He looked up slowly, the way a man does when he's not sure what he's looking at. "Thank you. Thomas says you taught him to ride last summer." "His father asked me to. He says you're patient with horses." She studied the mare tied at the post. "And apparently with 11-year-old boys." "Horses are easier," he said. She laughed, quick and genuine, the kind that arrives before the person decides to allow it. "I'll remember that the next time Thomas gives me trouble, though I suspect comparing him to a horse won't help." He almost smiled. Almost. She stayed 20 minutes, talking about Thomas, the school, whether winter was coming early. When she left, he went back to the hinge and found, somewhat to his surprise, that the afternoon had acquired a quality it hadn't had before. She came back 2 weeks later with a book about cattle management she'd found in the school library. He took it. He had already read it 10 years ago. He read it again anyway, which he told himself was because the chapter on winter grazing had new relevance and not for any other reason. The third visit, he was ready for her. He had made coffee, 2 cups, without thinking about it. Then he had looked at the 2 cups on the kitchen table and thought about what that meant and decided not to think about it further. She arrived at 2:30, as she generally did, and he handed her the coffee, and she took it the way she took everything, directly, without performance, and sat at his kitchen table. She looked at the 2 cups, then at him, then back at the cups. She said nothing. He said nothing. Porter the dog walked in, looked at both of them, and walked back out. "Smart dog," Clara said finally. "Yes," Jacob said. "He knows when to leave a room." There was a pause. Then Clara smiled into her coffee, and Jacob looked at the wall, and the kitchen was very quiet, and somehow, inexplicably, entirely comfortable. The town noticed. Towns always notice. By November, the Tuesday visits were known about. Clara rode past the feed store and the dry goods and the church on her way out of town, and people in Grover had eyes and opinions and, most critically, time. The opinions were various and delivered with the enthusiasm of people who didn't have enough to discuss. Martha Holt, who had known Jacob for 30 years, thought it was wonderful. "That man has been alone since Margaret," she told anyone who would listen, which was everyone. "It's been 11 years. 11! I've been worried." Franklin Pierce Sr. thought it was inappropriate, and said so carefully to the right people. Tom Briggs at the hardware store, when asked his opinion, said only, "He came back to ask about that stove." When pressed to explain what that meant, he smiled and found something to do in the back room. The banker's son, Franklin Jr., was less philosophical. He had sent flowers twice and had them returned, in the form of 20 children who had very much enjoyed them, and had some feelings about the situation. He encountered Jacob at the feed store on a Thursday. "I hear Miss Bennett has been visiting your ranch," Franklin Jr. said, with the careful tone of a man trying to sound casual and not quite managing it. Jacob looked at him. "She visits Thomas Aldridge's family too, and the Hendersons. She visits families of students." "Twice a week?" Jacob picked up his salt block. "Have a good Thursday, Franklin." He rode home. He was not, he told himself, bothered by the conversation. Porter disagreed. The dog could always tell when Jacob was lying to himself, and spent the evening sitting closer than usual. Ruth Deacon at the post office, who had appointed herself Clara's unofficial informant, reported the exchange to Clara the following morning. Clara listened, nodded, and said, "He picked up his salt block and left?" "Yes," Ruth said. "Good," Clara said. "That's the correct response." Ruth stared at her. "To what?" Clara smiled. "To not being bothered," she said. And she went to teach her class, and Ruth stood in the post office for a full minute trying to figure out what had just happened. Clara had not told Jacob, had not told anyone in Grover, the real reason she had come to Montana. Not the short version she gave at church socials, not the practical one about the teaching position. The real reason, the one she had spent a year learning how to say, she was saving for the right moment. She suspected the right moment was closer than she had planned. What she had learned in the year before Grover was the difference between a life that looked right and a life that felt right. She had spent 29 years being told they were the same thing. She now knew they weren't. She had come to Montana to find out what was hers. She had not expected Jacob Walker to be part of that answer, but there was something in him she recognized. Not his age, not his history, something in the quality of his attention, the way he listened without waiting for his turn, the way he said true things plainly, the way he had made 2 cups of coffee before he knew she was coming and had never once mentioned it. She had spent 29 years around people performing versions of themselves. Jacob Walker didn't perform anything, including, she noted, any awareness that she found this extraordinary, which was possibly the most extraordinary thing about it. She had told herself on the ride out to his ranch on the 4th Tuesday that she was simply visiting a neighbor. She had told herself this carefully and at some length. Porter had met her at the gate, tail moving with the enthusiasm of an animal who knew the truth before the humans did. She had looked at the dog for a moment. "Don't say anything," she told him. Porter wagged his tail. "Unhelpful," she said, and went inside.
5,000 of you are following these stories. From the United States, Canada, Germain, places I never imagined this voice would reach. If this story is giving you a good night, a like on this video means everything to me. And now, what country are you listening from today? Leave it in the comments. Now let's get back to the subject, because Jacob Walker is about to say the most sincere and most wrong thing he has ever said.
It was December when he said it. They had fallen into a habit. After coffee and conversation, they would sometimes walk to the east fence where the land opened up and the view went all the way to the mountains. In autumn, it had been gold. In December, it was the particular stark beauty of Montana in winter. The grass silver brown, the mountains showing their snow, the sky going pink and amber as the sun went down. They stood at the fence in the cold air, and Jacob said nothing for a long time because he was thinking about something he had been thinking about for weeks and had been refusing to bring to the surface. Porter sat between them, looking at the mountains with the philosophical expression of a dog who has decided the humans will sort this out eventually. Then Jacob brought it to the surface. "Clara," he said, "I need to say something." She turned to look at him. "I think you should consider spending your Tuesdays differently." He looked at the mountains. "You're 29 years old, and I'm 58. He paused. "You're too young for an old rancher. You deserve someone who can—" "Jacob, let me finish. You're going to say something you've decided is true without asking me whether I agree." He stopped. She was looking at him with the expression she sometimes turned on students who had given a confident, wrong answer. Not unkind, but completely unwilling to pretend the answer was right. "You're 58, she said. "I know that. I can count." She took a step closer. "But I'm not interested in your age. I'm interested in you. You listen. You tell the truth. You made coffee for 2 before you knew I was coming, and you've never once mentioned it." Porter looked at Jacob. Jacob looked at Porter. "Don't," Jacob said to the dog. Porter looked back at the mountains. Clara's expression did something complicated. Not quite a smile, but close. "To me," she said quietly, "you're perfect." The mountains held the last of the light. The cold wind moved through the silver grass. Jacob Walker, who had stopped expecting things, stood at the east fence of his ranch and felt something arrive in his chest that had no name and no warning and no regard whatsoever for the careful conclusions he had spent 11 years arriving at. He was quiet for a long time. Porter, sensing the gravity of the situation, sat on Jacob's foot. This was something the dog did in serious moments. Jacob had always found it helpful. "You don't know everything about me," he said finally. "I know enough," she said. "I know the important things. Margaret. I know about Margaret. You loved her. She died. You've been alone for 11 years, and you've convinced yourself that's the natural end of things." She paused. "It isn't." He looked at her. "Clara, in 10 years I'll be 68, she said, "and I'll be 39. And if you are half the man at 68 that you are now," she paused, "I'll count myself fortunate." He turned back to the mountains. Then she told him about Billings, about Edward, young, prosperous, from a good family, everything that the word suitable was supposed to mean. About the engagement, about the wedding that didn't happen 3 weeks before it was supposed to, and the reason it didn't happen. He listened completely. When she finished, "You ended an engagement 3 weeks before the wedding." "Yes, because it wasn't right. Because it was expected," she said, "which is different." "What is right?" he asked. She looked at him steadily. "This," she said. "Tuesday afternoons and honest conversation, and a man who makes 2 cups of coffee before he knows he needs to." A pause. "I didn't come to Montana to find this, but I found it." Porter stood up, stretched with great ceremony, and walked back toward the house. "Your dog agrees," Clara said. Jacob watched the dog go. "He always knows when the conversation is over," he said. "Is it over?" she asked. He looked at her. "No," he said. "I don't think it is." He didn't say yes immediately. That wasn't his way. He thought about it slowly, from every angle, with the stubbornness that was his best quality and his most inconvenient one. Porter participated in this process by following him around the ranch for 3 days with an expression of patient concern. "I'm thinking," Jacob told him on the second day. Porter sat down. "I know you think I'm taking too long." Porter looked at the middle distance. "That's not helpful," Jacob said. He thought about Margaret. Not with guilt, with honesty. Margaret had been a practical woman who had told him more than once that life was too short for unnecessary suffering, by which she meant specifically the kind of suffering people chose by refusing good things. He thought about the word expected. He thought about Clara ending an engagement because it was expected rather than right. He thought about the distinction, expected/right, and understood that he was being asked to make the same one. Expected. A 58-year-old widower stays alone. Right. Something else entirely. He went to her on a Saturday, not a Tuesday. Clara noticed immediately. He knocked on the schoolhouse door. She was grading papers. She looked up, saw him in the doorway with his hat in his hands, and set down her pen. "It's Saturday," she said. "I know." "You've never come on a Saturday." "I know." He looked at his hat. "I couldn't wait until Tuesday." She studied him for a moment.
I've told a lot of stories in my time, and the one that gets me every time is the man who finally stops talking himself out of something real and just walks through the door. Jacob Walker walked through that door on a Saturday in December, And I think he knew, before he knocked, how it was going to go. He just needed to get there.
Clara stood up from her desk. "You'd better come in then," she said. "It's cold in that doorway." He came in. The Montana winter light fell through the schoolhouse windows, clear and honest, the way it does in December. And Porter, who had followed Jacob the 12 miles into town and was sitting outside the door with the self-satisfaction of a dog who has managed events to his liking, put his head down on his paws and waited. He stood in front of her desk. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know," she said. "You think slowly." "I think carefully," he corrected. "Also true." She folded her hands on the desk with the patience of a schoolteacher who has waited for slower students than this. "What have you concluded?" He looked at her. This woman who had ridden out on Tuesdays and drunk his coffee and brought him a book he'd already read and told him at the East Fence in December that she thought he was perfect. "I've concluded," he said, "that I have been operating under a set of assumptions that need revision." "Such as?" "Such as the assumption that my age and my history constitute a reasonable argument against—" He paused. "Against what?" she asked. "Against asking you to marry me," he said. The schoolroom was quiet. Clara looked at him. He looked back. Outside, distantly, Porter could be heard making his presence known to a passing cat, which was briefly loud and then resolved. "And have you revised that assumption?" she asked. "With some difficulty," he said. "Yes." He reached into his coat pocket and produced a ring, Margaret's, which he had worn on his smallest finger for 11 years and had taken off that morning for the first time, because it was right that it go forward rather than stay still. "I would very much like it," he said, "if you would be my wife. Knowing everything that entails, the age and the ranch and the dog and the winters and all of it." Clara looked at the ring, then at him. "Jacob Walker," she said, "you are the most deliberate man I have ever met." "Is that a yes?" "It was always going to be yes," she said. "I was just waiting for you to think it through." He put Margaret's ring on her finger in the cold, clear light of a Montana December, not as a replacement for what had been, but as a passage from it, the way good things sometimes carry the weight of what came before without being crushed by it. Clara looked at the ring the way you look at something you recognize, not new, right. Outside, Porter achieved victory over the cat situation and resumed his post by the door with renewed dignity. They were married in February in the Grover Church with the kind of attendance that suggested the whole county had been waiting and wanted to be present. Franklin Jr. was gracious about it. His father, less so, but said nothing publicly. Martha Holt cried from the second pew with the unashamed satisfaction of a woman whose instincts had been vindicated after 11 years of patience. Clara wore deep blue, the color of the Montana sky in summer, because she was not a woman who felt required to wear white, and because the blue suited her. Jacob stood at the altar and watched her come toward him and understood, with the full weight of 58 years, how close he had come to not being here. Porter waited outside. When they emerged from the church, he greeted them with the enthusiasm of a dog who has personally arranged the entire situation and is pleased with how it turned out. Several guests were charmed. Jacob was not surprised. The house changed that spring. Not the structure, the feeling. The silence that had lived in every room was replaced by something else. The sound of two people's lives occupying the same space and finding it, somehow, more spacious than before. Clara brought books. Jacob built her a shelf, a good one, properly fitted. She told him it was the most romantic thing he had done. He found this confusing until he understood that she meant it. "A shelf?" he said. "You built it without being asked," she said. You measured it to fit the books I already had. You used the good wood." He considered this. "That's romantic?" "Jacob," she said patiently, "that is entirely romantic." He went back to his coffee, but he was smiling. Their son Henry arrived in the 3rd year, with his mother's directness and his father's patience, which made him formidable in ways that only became apparent gradually. Jacob was 61. He had worried about this, about being an older father. He mentioned it to Clara once. "Can you teach him to ride?" she asked. "Of course." "Can you teach him to mend a fence, read weather, keep his word?" "Yes." "Then," she said, "you're exactly what he needs." He didn't bring it up again. Their daughter May arrived in the 5th year, small and determined and funny in the way Clara was funny, which meant the house was considerably louder. May could also, by the age of 4, defeat Jacob at any argument she chose to enter, which he maintained was her mother's influence, and which Clara maintained was simply the natural result of paying attention. On a summer evening in their 10th year together, Jacob sat on the porch. Somewhere in the fields, Henry and May were arguing about something. He could hear it in the rhythm of their voices without hearing the words, and he knew that tomorrow neither of them would remember what it was about. He found he didn't mind. The second porter, son of the first, same eyes, same opinions, was asleep at his feet. Clara coming out with tea. She had converted him eventually from coffee in the evenings. He maintained this was a defeat. She maintained it was an improvement. They had agreed to disagree for 10 years and showed no signs of resolving it. She sat beside him and looked at the mountains. "I was wrong, you know," he said, "about the thing I said at the fence." "I know," she said. "I told you so at the time." "You did. You were very patient about it." "I'm a school teacher," she said. "Patience is professional." He smiled. The mountains held the last of the summer light. The second, Porter sighed in his sleep. The children's argument resolved itself somewhere in the fields, with the sudden silence that means one of them has won. He put his hand over hers on the armrest. The same gesture, 10 years in, still the same, and thought about a Tuesday in September when he had ridden into town for salt blocks and coffee and nothing else. He thought about 14 seconds of conversation outside a schoolhouse. He thought about 2 cups of coffee on a kitchen table and a dog who always knew before he did. He thought about the east fence in December and the words she had said and how wrong he had been and how grateful he was for it. "Thank you," he said quietly. She looked at him. "For what?" "For counting differently than I did," he said. She put her head against his shoulder. "Someone had to," she said. And the Montana evening held them both, and the mountains did what they always did, and it was, by every measure that actually counted, more than enough. Jacob Walker made an error that most of us would recognize. He decided in advance what was possible for him. He looked at his age, 58 years, a number he had counted carefully, and concluded that certain things were no longer available, that the window had closed, that the time had passed. He was wrong. Not because age doesn't matter, it does, in real and practical ways. But Jacob had made a mistake that is easy to make and hard to catch. He had confused the arithmetic of years with the arithmetic of value. He had counted the number and concluded he was too little. Clara counted something else entirely. She counted the man who listened without waiting for his turn, who told the truth plainly and didn't dress it up, who made 2 cups of coffee before he knew he needed to and never mentioned it, who built a shelf from good wood measured to fit the books she already had without being asked. I've told a lot of stories in my time, and the one that comes up again and again, the one that stays with me, is the man who was offered something real, and spent weeks talking himself out of deserving it. Jacob Walker stopped talking himself out of it on a Saturday in December when he rode 12 miles into town with his hat in his hands and knocked on a schoolhouse door. The heart does not follow a calendar. It does not look at a birth year and make decisions. It looks at a person, at who they actually are in the specific daily reality of their life, and it knows what it knows. You do not age out of being worthy of love. It is never too late to be found. Thank you for riding with me today. Wherever you are in this world, I am grateful you were here. Until next time, keep riding.